Hi there, I'm Aaron with HearSource.com. Today we're going to take a look at the HearSource fitting software, and we're going to look at this fitting screen. This is the screen that we use to program our hearing aids. And we're going to focus at the top here on this icon toolbar. Through this tutorial we're going to cover each and every one of these buttons and talk about the functions and how to use them appropriately. So we're going to start on the left side here and look at the exit button. Guess what? If you click on the exit button, it's going to exit you out of the software. The back blue arrow is going to take you back to that previous client information screen. The next arrow is grayed out, so it's not accessible on this fitting screen. The blank piece of paper is our new client button. If you click on this, this will take you back to that client information screen, but it'll be blank, as if you're ready to enter in new data for a new client. For personal use, this is one of those buttons that you probably never use. It's more designed for our clinical use and in the lab. The next button is the file folder, which is something that's available in the previous screen, the client information screen. And by clicking on this, you can gain access to all your client records. I'll just demonstrate how this works. For example, if I wanted to work with John Doe's data, I just click on the plus sign next to D for Doe, then click on his name, and now you can see I have all his data here, and I can open that data and go on from there. The next button, the floppy disk, if I click on this, this will open up the Save Client Session dialog box, and it's going to give you two options. It's going to ask you if you want to add a new client session, which will give you a brand new timestamp fitting data, and in that sense it kind of acts like a restore point in case you need to go back and restore fitting data inside the hearing aid. Or you can update the current one that you're working with. So whatever data that you're working with now, this will override it by updating. So you just hit OK to do that. The X button is the delete client button, and it's conveniently right next to your save, so be careful when you click that. The delete client button is one of those buttons that, again, you probably will never use a whole lot of, but when clicked it's going to open up this dialog message asking if you really want to delete this client, and in this case, no. The printer icon here will print your data that's available on the screen in numerical format, and so if this kind of reassures for safekeeping a hard copy of your data in case of any data loss, or if your computer crashes, or if this file for some reason gets corrupted. Now these next buttons, the yellow buttons right in the middle here, have to do with taking our data available through the sliders and loading them into the hearing aid, into temporary settings, and locking them into permanent memory, and also reading the data out of the hearing aid. So one thing that you need to remember with this software is the way it works is anytime that you make your adjustments with any of the sliders, that adjustment doesn't actually take place until you load those settings into the hearing aid. And to load settings, you click this middle button. Now it's important to remember that when you load something, you're only setting the information in the temporary memory. And so if you were to disconnect power after just loading the information, you would actually lose all that data. So to make things permanent, you have to follow your load by clicking the lock button, and this moves that information from the temporary memory into the permanent memory. And this button on the right side, this is your read button. So if you ever kind of get lost and you're trying to figure out, oh gosh, what are the settings inside the hearing aid at this time, you can hit the read button, and this will pull that data out and display it with all the different sliders available to you. Okay, now the next two buttons here work hand in hand. We'll start with this one. This is called the Save Curve in a Multi-Curve Buffer. This button has like a little camera here taking a picture of the output line. And now the output line on our software is the darker blue line for the left ear, and it'll be red for the right ear on this graph. So if I click this button, I can take a picture of that line. Now I can run to, let's say, the second program, and I can overlay that picture I just took of that output line by clicking this button here, and it will display it as a dotted line. So now we're able to kind of establish comparative data. I know the output curve for program 1, and we happen to be on program 2, so program 2 is the darker solid line, and so now we know the difference here. Just a good way of comparing data. Keeps you from having to click back and forth all the time from different programs. Okay, the next button is this 80/50 button. By clicking this button, it's going to show two output curves based on two levels of input. One for normal to soft sounds around 50 dB, and you see that output line there, and then one for 80 decibel input, which is louder sounds, and that's that line there. Now when you're working with your hearing aids, you're only working either with the left ear or the right ear independently. And so you can see on this toolbar here that we have the blue L depressed, and so that means we're on the left ear. By clicking the red R, we'll move over to the right side. And when you're loading data and you're locking data, you're only loading and locking for that particular side that you're working with. Now the next button is this configuration and ID data button, and this is kind of an important dialog box or menu here. This gives you access to the number of programs that you want to use with your hearing aids. Our hearing aids can support up to 4 different programs, and each program can be set any way that you want. So currently we have 2 programs set, and that's why in our toolbar we have a P1 and a P2 here. If I wanted to add 4 programs, I would just click that, and after I close this window down, it would add a P3 and a P4. Now in our program switch mode, for most of our hearing aids we use what we call a momentary switch. And this describes the little push button on the back of our hearing aids that allows you to switch from one program to the other. The other option is the static switch, which is not as common because what a static switch is, it's actually like a toggle switch, or almost like a little flip light switch, and it limits you to only 2 programs, and so that's why you see it gray out program 3 and 4 here. So we always use pretty much momentary for you. The next thing is tone configuration. When you select the different programs, you will actually hear a beep to identify the program that you're on. So you'll hear 1 beep for program 1, 2 beeps for program 2, 3 beeps for program 3, and so on and so forth. And we've got that turned on with this checkbox here. And we can set the tone frequency of those beeps, ranging from 500 Hertz to 2000 Hertz. We can set the tone level from 60 decibels sound pressure level and all the way up to 78 decibels sound pressure level. And we can also turn on, with this checkbox, we can enable the low battery warning tone. So when your hearing aid is getting low on juice, the hearing aid will beep at you. It's about 5 beeps, about 45 minutes prior to that battery dying on you. Just kind of gives you an advance warning. So just enough time to get your new batteries out and get them in the hearing aid. The manufacturer ID code and the manufacturer's reserved spacing down here at the bottom are all grayed out, so you can't edit these boxes. These numbers and coding have to do with identifying your hearing aid so that the software is able to recognize it and adjust it properly. So to close this box, you just hit this close window here, And you can see here that I added the 4 programs, so you can see the P3 and the P4 have just been added to our toolbar here. Okay, now the next button here is what we call our AutoFit button. By clicking this button, it's going to automatically autofit all the sliders so that our output curve matches our what we call our target output, which is based on our hearing loss. So let's look at this graph here. You see this light gray line here? This is the target output based on your hearing loss. So if I click this button, you will see that all the sliders will change so that your output curve, which is the output of the hearing aid, matches pretty close to your target. Now, I will tell you this, that whoever designed the software obviously is using averages to try to figure out a proper setting based on your hearing loss. And so when you're using averages, 50% of the time you're going to be right and 50% of the time you're going to be wrong. And I find that we're probably more wrong than we're right. So when you use the AutoFit, just know that it's just a starting point. It's not perfect. So at that point, you're either going to have to make things softer or louder, hone in on all the different frequencies to massage the sound so it's appropriate for your hearing loss. Okay, now the P1 through P4 are the different programs. If I click, for example, P2, this will automatically change the hearing aid to P2. You don't have to synchronize the push buttons on the hearing aids with the programs on the software. The software takes care of that switching for you, and if you're wearing the hearing aid, you actually will hear the change in output. Okay, now the last button is this wrench icon, which is by clicking this will open up our troubleshooting guide. In this troubleshooting guide, at the top here, you'll see some common complaints. For example, my voice sounds like my head is plugged up. Okay, so let's click on that. So down at the bottom here, we have some suggested adjustments. And so this S-fix, which is fairly common with most of the complaints, the S-fix means suggested fix. So let's go ahead and let's apply what the S-fix is. And so I'm going to hit apply, and you can see the S-fix lowered some low frequencies down here. It turned these down. Now this hasn't changed the hearing aid yet. We still have to load those settings into the hearing aid to actually hear the changes. And if you don't like it, you can always hit the undo button. It'll make those low frequencies a little louder again, and then you still have to load that back into the hearing aid to hear that change. So that's how that troubleshooting guide works. And to close it, you just hit this close button. Well, that's about it for the icon toolbar. If anybody has any questions, feel free to give us a call at 1-800-416-2434 or email me at techsupport@hearsource.com. Thank you all, and have a great day.